call the Nash County Board of Commissioners recess meeting back to order, June the 29th at 2:30. And it is customary for this board to begin each one of our meetings with invocation by a commissioner. At this time, you're welcome to stand and join us. You're welcome to use this time if you're airing us to have your own prayer, or of course, you can use it for a moment of silence. And then we would have a pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Wayne Outlaw. And at this time, I understand Dan Combs will not be here today due to a medical procedure. He wanted to try to come, but we have not seen him, so I'm going to assume he will not be here. And at this time, if it's okay, Mr. Fred Belfield, I'd like to call on you to have the invocation, sir.
Let's all stand. Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we just thank you for this day, a beautiful day. We thank you for the opportunity to be here to transact business for the citizens of Nash County. We pray, Father, for love, peace, and happiness. Even though we may have difference of opinion, Father, we know a difference of opinion can bring strength. We pray that we have that strength that will be pleasing in your sight. Now, Father, as we go forward with this meeting, we pray that you will be in our midst. These blessings we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Would you join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm going to take just a brief moment for the people that may be observing the meeting online to update you one more time about our meeting procedures now. At the current time, we are allowing people in the Commissioners' room. We will be having another meeting this coming Monday, which is the general meeting that we'll have the first of each month, and it will be, of course, at 9 o'clock in this room. You will be able to attend the meetings. We have the seats marked that you can sit in. It's not that many, but certainly if there are more people here than what we have seats for, we could stage them outside and we would call you in to speak if you have a public hearing that may be on our agenda, or if you have a public comment that you wish to make before the Commissioners. But that's how we are doing that presently. We do have the added restriction that came about this past week from our governor to wear masks in public, so we will sincerely encourage you to bring and wear a mask when you're in the building. We have them with us today. Of course, all commissioners came in with them on. I don't think you could understand me if I spoke with it on while I was sitting here, so I will take it off momentarily. But that's the update of where we are currently with our Board of Commissioners meetings, and I don't expect any change in that for right now. With that said, I'll go to our agenda, which is item number 3 at this time, and it's a resolution to donate surplus properties. And at this time, I'd call on our Finance Director, Donna Wood, to make this presentation. Ms. Wood?
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
So the Sheriff's Office has 24 digital Ally brand body cameras that have become surplus from its current use in the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office is aware that the Town of Nashville Police Department currently does not have any type of body camera program, but is interested in starting the program if the surplus cameras are available. In regard to General Statute 160A 280, donations of personal property to other governmental units, the Governing Board must adopt a resolution declaring that the property to be donated is surplus and give formal approval for the donation. So this is a request that the Board approve the attached resolution to donate the property to the Town of Nashville.
Any questions on this item by a commissioner? I spoke to the sheriff about it last week, and of course, these are the original body cameras that we got with a grant from the Highway Safety grants, and I understand they have been basically sitting in a box, not being used for quite a while now since we did update them. And I did ask that he check with the grant agency to make sure that this procedure that we were planning on doing met the guidelines of the grant, and I think, Donna, we did receive word that it would be okay for us to do this.
That is correct, we did.
Okay. So if there are not any other questions, I'd entertain a motion for us to adopt this resolution.
Move approval.
Have a motion by Commissioner
Second.
Richardson and second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Resolution stands approved. Item number 4, Ms. Wood, is your item also, and it is a revised P-card policy for the county. And this is not something we're going to adopt today. It's something that the commissioners had asked to be looked at during the budget reviews. And we, staff, as well as the Board of Commissioners, just felt like we had a tremendous number of P-cards that were out there, and P-cards are basically credit cards. I think, my understanding, government can't have credit cards, but they can have P-cards. I'm not sure why it's like that, but that's the way it is. But anyway, we just asked for it to be looked at, and Ms. Wood has brought a revised policy here today for us to begin reviewing. We did want to adopt something as soon as we could after this fiscal year, but I'd asked her to present it at this point in time, and it's for no action today.
So the main purpose, I just want to go through, the main purpose of the county's procurement card or P-card program is to simplify and expedite purchases of goods. The P-card is simply a payment tool, which offers an expansion of the existing Nash County procurement processes. The card allows departments to make certain transactions without having to submit an electronic requisition for the issuance of purchase order. It does not eliminate the requirement to ensure funds have been appropriated in the budget, funds are available, and to put a claim on the funds. Having a P-card is a privilege that comes with responsibilities. The P-card is intended to be used by authorized staff for authorized purchases. It's not an authorization to extend departments' unlimited purchasing ability, to acquire items previously not authorized by policy, or to avoid established pre-audit and procurement law. In order to ensure adequate controls and oversight of purchasing with the P-card is maintained for Nash County, the P-card policy revision is recommended for review and consideration for approval by the Board of Commissioners, in order that all Nash County employees are guided by a common set of guidelines when using this form of procurement. The revision to the P-card policy is to enhance the controls of the program, to provide a more robust ability to prevent and to detect issues that may arise with the use of the P-card. These revisions primarily include limiting the number of cards issued and enhancing the review and approval process, allowing a clearer segregation of duties and to inhibit opportunities for misuse. The revised policy is presented for review and discussion, as the chairman indicated, to allow commissioners and departments an opportunity to consider and comment on the recommended changes in the overall use policy. I request that the commissioners allow this policy to come back for approval at the July 6th Board of Commissioners meeting, and during the time in between today and the time that it's approved, to limit the use of the access of the current county cards.
Okay. I'm not sure, did we get this sent to us ahead of time, or did the commissioners just see it today?
I sent it on Friday, which
Friday,
it
okay.
wasn't, so it's not a long time to look
Sure,
at it.
okay.
But I also wanted our departments to have an opportunity to look at it as well, because they will be the ones using it.
Sure.
I want to make sure they don't have any comments that I haven't considered as part of our policy.
Right.
And so I just wanted to present it, to have it in front of the commissioners. So when we come back, or during the time in between now and when we come back on the 6th, we can maybe iron out some things and have a good policy to approve at that point.
Correct. All right, is there any commissioner have any questions or comment at this time? If certainly we can talk about it more on Monday, but anybody right now have a reviewed and got any questions?
Yeah, it was,
Ms. Belfield?
I read it, and there were a few things in here, and some of them I should have made notes. I don't remember now. I read it last night. But one that struck my attention was misplacement of receipts, and how you're going to handle that. If a person has the privilege of using the card and misplaced receipt or lose it or forgot to get one, the procedure, I didn't see in there, to me, a satisfied procedure as to how it would handle, other than it just said we work it out.
Right. Well, it does happen. It happens now, but fortunately, it's rare that it does happen because with our system in place and with the use of cell phones, we have the opportunity to actually take a picture of your receipt. So if you're somewhere, there's no reason to really have a lost receipt. But the way that the policy is written, it indicates that first thing you want to do is contact the vendor and try to get another copy of the receipt. And then the next item is if you can't get another copy of it, you have to document everything that was on there as much as possible. And again, if this is a continued problem with the same user, then your card can become, we can terminate your ability to have it. It is a privilege, so you do have to follow certain guidelines. But if you continue to misplace receipts, or it happens, I think we've given a couple of opportunities for it to happen, then I have the ability to take away the privilege because we do have to follow our guidelines to make sure things are properly handled.
Well, sometimes you can't always go back and get a receipt from a vendor. So that means that you and your staff and the person that happened to misplace the credit card had to work it out in a satisfactory form.
That's true, and we try to have the person who misplaced it to give a detail of what they actually purchased and try to provide the best of their ability, and then it also goes through an approval process. So if somebody misplaced it, it's not just that we're relying on that, it's, what they received, and then the misplaced documentation or the documentation to show what was purchased will also have to be approved.
If I may, and when a receipt is lost, we have that person sign an affidavit saying how much it was and that they did purchase it. So we try to put something in our records to show,
Yeah, well,
to attest by the person who charged it what it was for.
yeah, but that's why that was one that struck me, because you need a record.
And we can work on,
Especially for your audit,
right.
you would need a record. This is quite a bit of detailed information, 8 pages. Are you going to have a workshop, a presentation to whoever selected to use the privilege of using these cards? Because this is quite a bit of detail.
Right. Well, we have, what we'll do once we assign who the users are, who the administrators and who the approvers, we have a system in place to make sure that those specific people will be trained on how it's used. And we'll contact them individually because we'll have a limited number of cards, so we don't have to have an overall training course. But we also have written guidelines on step-by-step processes within our system of how that works as well.
We're going to ask each department that gets a card to designate a particular person. What we're trying to avoid is the same person using the credit card or purchase card, procurement card, that approves the purchase. So we're trying to create internal controls that will have at least 2 people involved in the purchase of goods.
Before it gets to finance.
Right. Actually, it's at least 3 people. So we have one person that would actually purchase with the card, who has access to the card, another person that would actually key in the account where everything was charged to, and make sure all the receipt is there and everything's documented. And then you have another person that will actually be within that department approving the transaction, that this was actually something that was allowed in their department.
Anything else, Mr. Belfield, at this time?
Yeah. I'll go back and read it again, because there's
Okay.
some other things in there.
Sure. Well, just make your notes
that-
and Monday.
I mean, not being critical, but just how are we going to handle
Yeah,
the credit card?
yeah. Well, make your notes and we'll look
I
at it
will.
more on Monday.
I will.
Okay.
I'll read it
All right.
before we
And
come to
also-
meet Monday, this coming Monday. So I'm fine right now.
Okay.
If,
Ms.
in
Wood.
between, if you have some comments that you'd like to send to me as well, so we can
Sure.
address them
Okay.
prior to the meeting.
I've
that
got
would
a
be great.
couple of sleeve, but I will certainly get in touch with you.
Okay,
I think the key thing is we just need to make sure our departments that are 24/7 departments, and I think we've got those covered. But that's the thing that has seemed to be the most important in the past, and I think this is much improved. The number out there will come way, way down from what it currently is, which is, I think, what the manager wanted and commissioners had a concern about as well. So it's going to be a lot better than it was. All right, for no other questions on that, we'll go to item number 5. It's just your day, Ms. Wood, it looks like, but a COVID-19 grant project ordinance amendment.
right. On June 15th, I presented the COVID-19 grant project ordinance. We actually, the Nash County Sheriff's Office received a grant for $58,008 from the Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, for the fiscal year 20 coronavirus supplemental funding program grant. And I wanted to put it along with this grant project ordinance. That grant actually goes through January of 2022, so I wanted to make sure it was something that would carry forward each year if there were funds still available. So it's just an amendment to add $58,008 to our project grant ordinance.
So this doesn't have anything to do with the additional changes that are coming forward. We'll deal with that later. Okay,
Hopefully Monday.
hopefully Monday, okay.
You're talking about the additional 1.7?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so all we're doing now is taking that money that came into the sheriff's department, including it under the same item that we had already approved previously.
That's true, that's correct.
And there's a corresponding expenditure line, you can see 58,008.
Correct. All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve this grant project ordinance at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Wells, second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, by a like sign. Motion stands approved. And the next item on the agenda, and before I forget it, I had an item I wanted to add to the agenda, which I would add as item 7, if it's okay, and it's item about our tax collector, and I will add that to the agenda if there's no opposition from board members to do that. Something time sensitive that we need to do today, very simple. Okay, just don't let me forget to do item 7. Number 6 is budget amendments. Ms. Wood again.
Okay, the first item I have for budget amendments for the Commissioner's approval for fiscal year 1920 is with our workers' comp internal service fund. This amendment's to budget additional funding in the workers' comp fund to cover the cost of a final payout claim settlement. The funding is requested from the workers' comp fund balance. It's requesting an additional $45,000 in that internal service fund. The next item is disaster recovery cost. This amendment is to appropriate fund balance to allocate additional funds for COVID-19 expenditures eligible for FEMA. And again, this is separate from the other grant projects that we just addressed in the COVID-19 grant ordinance, but it's for FEMA reimbursement, and we wanted to add an additional $75,000 for supplies in that account. The next item is with the Sheriff's Office and Jail. This budget amendments to budget fund balance appropriation and to transfer budgeted lapsed salary and various other budget surplus items, including fuel, travel and training, service maintenance contracts, and dues and subscriptions as of June 2020 from the Sheriff's Office budget to the jail budget to provide additional funding to cover unanticipated adult detention fees and related medical fees for Nash County inmates housed in other facilities. We're adding an additional $210,000 to the adult detention line with $100,000 coming out of fund balance appropriation and $110,000 coming from the Sheriff's Office, excess budget items. The final item that I have for budget amendments with the Health Department is budget amendments to budget additional health reserve funds to cover additional funding requirements for bioterrorism and maternal health programs. It's for $66,330, and no county funds are required. And that's all for my budget amendments for fiscal year 1920.
Are you sure?
I hope so.
Yeah, I know you've been working mighty hard on that. I will say, if you'll go back to the sheriff's office, you recall last month, we had a budget amendment that we pulled, which was a transfer from fund balance of $400,000 to cover adult detention. Ms. Wood, Mr. Lamb, and the entire accounting staff has worked very hard the last month to identify any funds at Mr. Lamb's request that we could move around within the sheriff's department, keeping the sheriff's department and, I say department, office of the sheriff, I apologize again. And we were able today to bring back that appropriations from fund balance at $100,000 rather than $400,000. So they've done a great job on identifying funds, and the people at the sheriff's office have worked hard as well to retain as many funds as they could by working together with us well. And quite frankly, I think Ms. Wood actually thinks we may well not spend all or possibly any of the fund balance that we're appropriating, but we got to go into the end of the year with enough money to pay all the bills. So it's important that we do that. But she really was at the point where she didn't want us to move anything, and I think Mr. Lamb and myself both, when we met Thursday or Friday on it, just wanted some cushion. So I just want to say how good a job the finance department has done on this item to get it to where it's at. Been $100,000 and may well not be anything. We just have to wait and see. And the item that we have such a tail on as far as the bills coming in on the detention in other locations are the medical bills, because they just seem we're getting them 2 months late, sometimes 3 months later, and so we just don't really know what they are. They even went to the extent of taking each individual inmate that would have where they're located at and try to get a history of their medical bills to project what it may be at the end of the year. So I think they've done everything they could do to get it as close as we can, and quite frankly, I sit here today tickled with what we've gone through this year, with it been $100,000 out of fund balance, not any more than what it is. Mr. Lamb, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I was just going to say, we did move unspent funds from the detention center budget to adult detention within that budget.
Right,
Which was 80-some thousand, I believe.
87.
And to follow up on what the chairman said, we're not sure we'll need that fund balance appropriated, but we just, if an inmate in another facility has a major medical situation today or tomorrow, it could be put back in this year's budget, and we just want to have a little cushion there.
Any questions on any of these 4 budget amendments? That's a pretty short list for the end of the year. Not bad. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Belfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries as well. The next item on the agenda was the item I wanted to add, and there's a note I got that says, please ask the board if you can add the following item, which is to extend the term of the acting tax administrator for an additional year. And Mr. Lamb, you gonna make this presentation?
I'll be glad to, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. On the April 2019 regular commissioners meeting, Doris Sumner was appointed acting tax administrator. Acting is a requirement that you can get up to 2 years, and it allows you to get all your courses out of the way and pass the final test. Ms. Sumner has passed every single required test, but the final exam that she was scheduled to take in March, the Department of Revenue building got shut down. I don't know if you remember. and it has not been available, and they're saying it probably won't be available till the end of the year or first of next year. So we're here today to ask you to extend Ms. Sumner's appointment as acting tax administrator. That's a legal term until she gets fully certified, and we feel confident she will, until March 31st, 2021. I will say that we were very concerned about this year's tax collections. Not only did we have a new tax collector, even though she's been doing it for many, many years,
Oh, we weren't concerned about that part of it.
COVID-19 really concerned us. And what we have found and what other counties have found that I've learned through my county manager weekly conferences is that people use their stimulus checks to go pay their taxes. So whereas last year we had a 98.85% collection rate, the highest we can find, I guess going back to about 84 that we could find the audits. So that was the largest ever, the highest rate ever. As of today, we are at 99.03. So
I think she passed her final exam, Mr. Lamb.
she's passed my final exam, I can assure you. But I would ask the board to extend her appointment through March 31st, 2021.
All right, you heard the request, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
by Commissioner Richardson, second by several commissioners. Mr. Bellfield, I think I heard start first. Any questions on that motion? I think we all delighted vote for it. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? No opposition whatsoever. Tickled to death, and thank you, Doris, for what you and your department have done. 99.03, that's pretty amazing. I know it's been moving up ever since we employed Mr. Lamb, but I hear many other governmental agencies complain about theirs going in the opposite direction, and I'm just tickled to death, and I know the board members are where we are. I keep thinking one day you're gonna get, I've asked you before, can you collect more than 100%? I don't guess you can you? But
You can collect more than 100% of the current year levy if you count prior years.
I do realize that, but it is a job well done. On behalf of the board, we thank you very much. Okay, that was the items we had on the agenda. Any commissioner got anything they want to bring to the recess meeting at this time? Seeing nothing, I want to give a quick update on the duties that the board charged me with back in March, I guess it was, which you asked me to be a go-between for the sheriff's department until July the 1st, and try to improve that situation. July the 1st is Wednesday. We won't be meeting again. I did meet with the sheriff's office, several people during last week. I met with staff as well, and try to get where we were, assess where we were. I think things are much better, not because of me, but because of everybody has worked, I think, in a true team spirit to get things better. We've got a lot accomplished. We agreed on the jail improvements that we'd be doing. We've hired the architect. We've had 2 meetings, Mr. Outlaw, I think, thus far, and they have gone well with the team from the Board of Commissioners, from staff, as well as from the Sheriff's Office. What we've worked out is in meeting with the Sheriff's Office, they were very comfortable, and quite frankly, the biggest task I had was the finance side of it. It was a lot more involved than what I anticipated. It took a lot of time each day, and I had to take a cram course on financing, but that's okay too. I always like to learn. But in speaking with them, they were the sheriff included and his staff were very willing to work directly with Ms. Wood on anything to do with financing. And so effective after tomorrow, and I will tell you, I've got a meeting scheduled tomorrow with Donna and myself and 3 people at the sheriff's office and maybe somebody else from her staff, and we're going to lay out a few little problems that we have between the 2 operations and try to make it run smoother. Donna was asked by myself to come up with a list that we could discuss tomorrow. We are going to do that. But after tomorrow, which will then be July the 1st, all financing will be directly with her. I've spoken with Mr. Lamb on the other items concerning the sheriff's department. He felt like he wanted to start dealing with them one-on-one again. Quite frankly, I asked him to give it a little bit more time. He really didn't want to do that. So I'm going to step out of that part of it as well. And the way I have presented it to the sheriff and what it will be is if he needs anything from the Board of Commissioners, or if he needs anything or he's not satisfied with after he discusses it with administration, that he can call me at any time, which Mr. Lamb agreed to, and we would try to work through it. I'm asking everybody, including the manager staff, to, first sign you see of any trouble, let's deal with it day one. Not to let it fester, not allow it to get where it got before, because it's really not where we want to go back to, quite frankly. So, but the sheriff has my phone number, and he has worked real well the last 4, 5, 6 weeks with us and doing what he can. So that's kind of where we'll be at moving forward. Mr. Lamb, I'd invite you to add anything to that you wish to from our discussion at the end of last week.
Yeah, I don't anticipate any issues on our side. The biggest conflict came in that we had been directed in December to approve every single purchase order. And anytime we didn't approve a purchase order, it became confrontational. My request is that we allow the sheriff's office, starting July 1, to be just like every other department. They have a budget now that y'all have approved. They've got line items within that budget. There won't be any need for me or Ms. Wood to do a second layer of approval. They have a budget like everybody else now. They have to live within their budget. And so I don't see there being a whole lot of conflict requests that they will have to make with us. We are going to try to, as the chairman said, we're going to try to streamline the sheriff's office contact with the finance office, because in the past we've had up to 5 or 6 different people at different times doing things, and it just got to be very confusing. So tomorrow, the hope is that we can come up with some procedures. So on the finance side, it'll be uniform and consistent, dealing with payroll, HR, accounts payable, accounts receivable. And again, I don't see a whole lot of conflict that's brewing, since I'm no longer going to be required to approve or not approve every single request for spending that the commissioners had wanted to get a hold of in order to pay for that adult detention problem we had. So I look forward to it, and we'll, I don't hold grudges, so I'm ready to work hard. So hope everyone is too. So.
Thank you. Just a question, Mr. Lamb. I know the board put that restriction on purchasing on the sheriff's office. There were numerous other things done as it relates to COVID-19, as it relates to travel out of town, out of state. Can you update the board on how much of that's still in effect, or do you want to give us an update July, at our first meeting next month, maybe. I don't recall all the things that you put in place, but there were still some, but I'd like to make sure the sheriff understands what is still in place. I know one of them was, Donna, help me out, was it out-of-town travel or out-of-state travel?
Out-of-state travel.
Out of state.
requires that the county manager approve it.
Okay.
Before something like that is booked, and that's across every department.
Right. I knew they were, whatever you got that's still in effect countywide, let's make the sheriff's office aware of that.
We want to treat the sheriff's office like every other department. And what you're referring to, the out-of-state travel policy, is embedded in our personnel policy, in our travel policy. It's not something I just put into effect, but that has created issues at time when I'm not sure if the sheriff's position is, if the money's in the budget, he doesn't need my approval, or what, which, you know, I've never not given him approval if I was asked. There's just sometimes, after the fact, requests were made for reimbursement and approval after the fact, and so
Well, let's
anytime they
clear
want.
that up
Yeah.
tomorrow if we can.
Yeah, I think
To what is
if y'all
expected
could,
of.
yeah.
If you and Donna could talk about that. Were there no other, I thought for some reason we had put some things in effect countywide, trying to reserve our revenues for the rest of the year, not knowing where we were. Am I just wrong on that, maybe?
We eliminated travel, well, one, because a lot of events have actually been canceled.
Sure.
And so we eliminated travel through the end of the fiscal year. There were obviously online training courses, but any kind of travel, we had stopped, not knowing what would happen to our budget.
Right.
And so with the new budget, and hopefully new phases opening up, then we can maybe reinstate some of the travel that would be considered or necessary for.
Was that in that initial memo that you sent out? Okay.
I just recall, if y'all would just review
Yeah.
that, Donna. if you
We'll
could,
review that memo.
Let's discuss that tomorrow in our meeting. Make sure we start out, everybody understanding what rules we're currently working under.
As far as I'm concerned, July 1, we can proceed as in the past for all departments. Obviously, even though we've got travel funds in our budgets, there aren't a lot of seminars out there right now where you actually go to it, or conventions. Both the state association and the National Association of Counties have switched to a virtual convention conference. But it's our intent, and we will go over that memo that was done last December. It's my intent that all those things that were put both in the original letter to the sheriff regarding his restrictions, but also any restrictions that we've come up with will be uniformly applied if they are maintained at all.
Okay. All right, that's the only thing I had to go over. Mr. Lamb, I'll turn it over to you for any other comments you got.
No other comments?
Okay, entertain a motion for adjournment, or any questions, board members, Ms. Leggett?
I did have one comment I'd like to bring up.
Sure.
Okay. It's been brought to my attention that there are some ongoing issues with the fire department radio system. Recently, it was transitioned over from an old repeater system to a new Viper system
correct.
that's maintained, state maintained. And with the new system, everybody had to get new radios with the new frequency. And now, whereas on these old radios, you could hear all the radio traffic, and that's not the case now. You have to have a new Viper radio or special pager to be able to hear all the radio traffic. And some of your volunteers are put at a disadvantage that the officers and maybe your paid folks that have these Viper radios, they have that advantage. They can hear all the traffic. And so I have.
I actually think that was by design, but go ahead.
Right. But it's an issue. You've got firemen going to calls that they don't have all the information. They don't know that maybe a road's blocked or that the fire trucks are already gone because it might not have been repeated that those fire trucks are en route or that there's a power line down or a road blocked. So anyway, it's an issue, not for all departments. Some departments have chosen to make the investment to buy all volunteers or all members Viper pagers or Viper radios. But when this transition was made, it was not budgeted for all departments to receive those radios. So I'm just passing along that this is an issue. It's been brought to my attention. I've contacted emergency services about the issue, and I think they're working on some operational, maybe policies and procedures within their 911 center to make sure that all pertinent information is passed along on the proper channels. But without the Viper pagers or Viper radios for all the volunteers across the county, it is somewhat of an issue.
Mr. Chairman. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we'll certainly look into it, but you wouldn't believe the amount of detail and time we spent on that, and each department let us know how many radios they wanted. I mean, and some of them wanted more than others, but some of them wanted less for certain reasons, so we kind of let each department do what they wanted to do. Some of them didn't want everybody to have radios that you could get on, everybody would have all the information, but we allowed each department to make those decisions, but certainly, I'll get with you and we'll look back into it, because we did, that was a pretty monumental task to get everybody happy. We went into it with them all wanting it, but if something's changed, we can certainly look into it again.
Thank you.
Sure, be glad to.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
and that's exactly what I remember.
right.
We had much discussion over this subject, and the departments actually provided the number of radios that they needed, including the number of radios that they move on the trucks to
Right.
the scene.
Right.
And in addition to that, we also provided funding mechanisms, which included, if I'm not mistaken, that the county would actually loan them the money
That's
at
right.
no interest to pay for whatever number of radios that they had. And I was not aware, I've not heard this from my department or really anybody else, but
I hadn't either, but certainly.
that's news to
we'll
me.
look
But they
into it.
did have options up front to cover the number of radios that they needed, or what they said they needed.
Right. Mr. Belfield, did you have a comment?
I was going to ask, is this coming from the leadership of the department, or is it coming from individual, some of the
I'll
members?
handle it, Sue, any way you want to. We can discuss it here, or I'll be glad to get with you and discuss it with your, whatever chief has an issue. You tell me how you want to handle it.
This is coming from the volunteers.
Okay.
The chiefs and your
Okay, it's not
officers
the leadership.
are really not, it's not a big issue for them because they're hearing all the traffic that they need to hear.
Well,
This
that's
is
what they
from,
told us to start with.
right,
so.
this is from your regular volunteers that,
Why don't you and I just talk about it? I think would be the fair thing to do. I don't want to cause any issues with any fire departments with a discussion we have here, because we depend on them, each one of those volunteers very much. But I'll get with you on that and see what we can do to help it. Did you have anything to add, Mr. Lamb?
Y'all touched upon it. I'll be glad to put together a meeting with Scott Rogers if,
Okay, well, let's just see what we got
Yeah.
first. Any other commission, did you have anything else, Ms. Leggett?
no, thank you.
Okay,
I was
Mr. Belfield?
just going to say about the sheriff's budget, it's good that they have line items. Can they shift one line item, maybe they're not using it and they need it, somewhere else, can they move that money?
That's a very detailed plan that is in place. Mr. Lamb can explain it to you. There's some things you can do, some things you can't do, but
Yeah, our general rule is lapse salaries and lapse benefits are not movable. The manager has to approve any line item transfer within a budget, but it doesn't have to come to the commissioners.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
that's the reason I asked.
So-
And it wasn't so much about the salary as it is about
Yeah,
the use to implement what the sheriff's
right.
program plan is for the year.
Right. And I'm not talking about just the sheriff's office, but what we have to be careful about is if you've got 12 line items and 2 of them are $100,000 and, and they tell us at budget time, and again, I'm not talking about the sheriff's office, I'm talking about any budget in any county. If they spend all, say supplies, say they expend all 100,000 as an example, early on, and a lot of times they'll want to find other line items that they're not going to spend it all in order to move that and spend that. And if it's for a legitimate purpose, that's why we have to approve it, the finance officer and I. If the transfer is for a legitimate purpose, need, we generally authorize it. If we feel like it's just trying to spend the whole budget, and again, I'm not talking about any particular department, I'm really not, then we have to look at it. We have to look at it twice and make sure they're just not trying to get their budget down to zero.
and of course, the next step is when it has to come to us, which is what we've been doing quite a bit since December with the sheriff's office, but that's when you moving something from one division. You explained that too, so it'll be right.
Right. The sheriff in this county has like 6 or 7 different budgets. In some counties, including detention center, he might only, well, some counties, the sheriff, there's one budget. We break ours out. So we've had to bring to y'all, when we took lap salaries out of court security and lap salaries out of the sheriff's office to pay for adult detention, that has to come to y'all because we have set it up as 2 different budgets or 3 different budgets. But that's just the nature that the only line item that I can move into any budget is $15,000 in contingency that's in the budget. I have the authority to put some or all of that money in any line item without coming back to y'all. But generally, if you take money from the sheriff's office, put it in the detention budget, you have to get the commissioners to approve that.
Any other questions, Mr. Belfield?
Yep.
Entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Outlaw. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Stand adjourned and lead to whatever one to be safe.